This story happened on Halloween night. I had taken my 8-year-old son, Elias, trick-or-treating around the neighborhood. He was dressed as a little vampire, fangs and all, and everyone seemed to love his costume. We got home around 8 p.m., and I made us both some hot soup to warm up. We watched a Halloween special on TV, and then I tucked him into bed. I remember feeling unusually drained that night, like something had just pulled the energy out of me. I brushed my teeth, turned off the lights, and crawled into bed myself. Maybe 30 minutes later, Elias came into my room, rubbing his eyes. He said, "Dad, I think someone's in my closet." I smiled and told him, "Buddy, it's just your imagination. Halloween can make everything feel spookier than it really is." He asked if he could sleep with me, but I told him he was safe in his room and should try to sleep in his own bed. He hesitated, nodded, and went back. I laid there thinking maybe I should have just let him stay, but I didn't want him to grow up afraid of shadows. A few minutes later, he came back. I sat up and asked him, "What's going on? Why do you think there's someone in your closet?" He said, "I heard something. Like, someone moving. And I think something fell." His face was pale, and this time, he looked genuinely scared. I got up, walked him back to his room, and turned on the lights. I tried to make it lighthearted, joking, "Okay, Mr. Closet Ghost, you better not be in there." We both laughed a little, but then, we heard it. A faint thump. Not loud, but definitely coming from the closet. I felt a chill. I turned to Elias and told him, "Go next door to the Russells, tell them to call the police." He nodded and ran. I stared at that closet door, heart pounding in my chest. I opened it fast, ready to punch a raccoon or yell at some prankster teen. But what I saw. It still makes me feel sick when I think about it. A teenage boy. Maybe 15, 16, crouched down on top of a pile of stuffed animals. He looked more scared than I was. I grabbed him by the hoodie, yanked him up, and dragged him out the front door. I marched him next door where Elias was already banging on the Russells' door. When they opened it, I shoved the boy inside and said, "You better explain this right now." The Russells were stunned. Especially when I told them what had happened. The kid's name was Liam, their nephew visiting for the weekend. Apparently, he'd been with a friend earlier, one who ran off when he heard us coming back from trick-or-treating. Liam admitted they got in through an unlocked back window. They thought it'd be funny to scare someone. I didn't think it was funny. I asked, "Is your friend still in my house?" Liam nodded slowly. Without another word, I turned and ran back. The moment I opened the door, I could hear movement upstairs. I rushed into Elias's room. And caught the second boy, taller, older, and worse, rummaging through my son's dresser. He froze, holding one of Elias's socks in his hand. Just a sock. But in that moment, it was the last straw. I tackled him to the floor and held him there until he begged to be let go. I told him if I ever saw his face again, he'd regret it. He ran out, fast. The only reason I didn't call the police was because the Russells had been close friends for years. But I made sure they understood this wasn't going to be forgotten. That night, I let Elias sleep with me. He didn't talk much, just curled up next to me and held my arm. The next morning, while checking the room, I noticed something disturbing. A small hole in the closet door. It was barely visible, but definitely drilled intentionally. The realization hit me like a punch in the stomach. They weren't just hiding. They were watching. Spying on my son as he changed, as he slept. And I'd invited them back into the safety of our quiet little street. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to scream. But what would it change now? Liam had been sent back to his hometown the next day. The other kid, I never even got his name. Elias is 14 now. He still double-checks his closet every night. And I still check all the windows before bed. I've never really forgiven myself for not pressing charges. I wonder if they've done it again. I wonder if I had the power to stop something worse from happening, if I just hadn't let it go. But the part that keeps me up at night is knowing that Halloween is supposed to be about make-believe. About masks and candy. But sometimes, the scariest thing about Halloween is when the monsters turn out to be real.